Hey guys, tonight we were going to explore something a little bit different. A topic that might seem a bit intense for winding down. Terrifying dreams and visions sent directly from God. Imagine you're adrift in the deepest part of sleep, that quiet, velvet darkness where the world fades away. Suddenly, that darkness begins to churn. It's not a normal dream. There are no fuzzy edges or nonsensical plots. This is sharp, hyperreal. You feel a presence that is so immense it physically presses down on you. A silence so profound it's louder than any sound. You see things not meant for human eyes, celestial architecture, creatures of fire and light, futures that feel more real than your own past. It's the kind of divine encounter that could literally stop your heart. A glimpse into the raw, unfiltered mind of the Creator. Let's be honest, you probably won't survive this kind of revelation with your worldview intact. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Feel free to drop your location and local time in the comments below. It's always wonderful to see where everyone is tuning in from around the world. To truly understand the weight of the dream we're about to explore, you first have to understand the man who dreamt it. His name is Jacob, and when we meet him on this particular evening, he is not a hero. He's not a prophet, not a king, not even a particularly righteous man. He is, to put it plainly, a fugitive, and he's on the run from the one person who should have been his closest ally, his twin brother, Esau. This isn't some minor sibling squabble over a toy or a slight. This is a deep, primal betrayal. Jacob, with the help of his clever mother, Rebecca, has just swindled his older brother out of everything that mattered in their world. First, years earlier, he'd manipulated a starving Esau into trading his birthright, his future inheritance, and status as the firstborn for a bowl of lentil stew. A truly low moment. But what he's just done is infinitely worse. He disguised himself, covering his smooth skin with goat skins to mimic his famously hairy brother, and deceived his own father, Isaac, who was old, blind, and on his deathbed. He knelt before his father and stole the patriarchal blessing, a sacred, spoken word inheritance of divine favor that, once given, could not be taken back. When Esau discovered the deception, his grief turned instantly to a white-hot, murderous rage. He vowed that as soon as their father was gone, he would hunt Jacob down and kill him. The threat was not idle. Esau was a man of the field, a skillful hunter, strong and impulsive. Jacob was, by contrast, a quiet man dwelling in tents, a schemer, a thinker. In a physical confrontation, there would be no contest. So Rebecca, seeing the storm she had helped create, urged Jacob to flee. "Go," she told him, "run to my brother Laban in Haran. Stay there for a while until your brother's fury subsides." And so Jacob runs. He leaves everything he has ever known, the tents of his family, the familiar landscape of Beersheba, the protection of his parents, and sets out alone on a journey of hundreds of miles across a harsh and unforgiving land. Imagine him on that first day. Every snap of a twig, every shadow that dances in the periphery of his vision must feel like his brother's approach. He is carrying the heavy guilt of his actions and the cold, terrifying fear of retribution. He has no caravan, no companions, no guards. It is just one man, a staff in his hand, a small pouch of supplies, and the clothes on his back, walking away from his past and into a completely unknown future. For days he walks. The sun beats down on him, the landscape shifts from the familiar to the foreign, and the loneliness deepens. As dusk falls on one of these long, grueling days, he finds himself in a place of stark, desolate beauty. The Bible simply calls it a certain place. It has no name, no significance. It's just a patch of rocky ground somewhere between his old home and his new destination. There is no inn, no welcoming tent, no friendly fire. There is nothing. Exhaustion finally overtakes him. He can't walk any further. This anonymous, empty spot will have to be his bedroom for the night. He gathers a few stones, not to build a fire for warmth or to cook a meal, but to form a small, protective circle around his head, a meager defense against the scorpions or snakes that might crawl in the night. He selects one of them, a smooth, sun-warmed, utterly unforgiving piece of rock, and places it where a pillow should be. He lies down on the hard, dusty earth, pulling his cloak tight against the desert chill. Lying there, with the unyielding stone pressing into his skull, he stares up at the sky. The stars are beginning to emerge, cold and distant diamonds scattered across a vast, dark canvas. He is utterly, completely alone. He is a man who has, through his own cunning, cut himself off from both family and home. He is adrift. And it is here, in this moment of absolute nothingness, at the very lowest point of his life, that God decides to show up. As sleep takes him, it's not the fitful, troubled rest you might expect. He doesn't dream of his brother's angry face or his father's sorrow. He plunges into a different reality altogether. The dream that comes to him is intensely vivid, structured, and overwhelming. Before him, a structure materializes. The word we often use is ladder, but that conjures an image of 2 rails and some rungs, something you used to clean the gutters. The original Hebrew word, salam, suggests something far grander. A massive ramp, a celestial stairway, like the great ziggurats of ancient Babylon that were built to bridge the gap between the mundane earth and the divine heavens. This structure is immense, its base resting on the very ground where Jacob lies, its foundation tangled with the dusty, profane reality of his flight. But its top reaches beyond the stars, beyond the veil of the night sky, and pierces into the very realm of heaven itself. It is a solid, shimmering bridge between 2 worlds that Jacob must have felt were infinitely separate. And the stairway is not empty. It is a highway of divine activity. Beings of light, angels of God, are moving up and down its length. They are ascending and descending. Think about that for a moment. They are ascending first. This suggests their work, their starting point, is on earth. They are messengers, guardians, agents of the divine will, carrying reports and prayers from this world up to the heavens, and then descending again with blessings, guidance, and instructions. The dream reveals that the desolate place where Jacob lies is not empty at all. It is a hub of cosmic traffic, a place where heaven is actively and intimately involved with earth. The universe is not cold and silent. It is humming with the quiet, purposeful work of God. For a man who feels like the most isolated person in the world, this vision is a staggering revelation. He is sleeping in the middle of Grand Central Station for the divine. The sight of the great stairway and the silent procession of angels would be terrifying enough. A vision of such scale and otherness that it would strain the limits of human comprehension. But then, the dream intensifies. At the very top of the structure, or perhaps standing right beside him on the earth, the text is beautifully ambiguous. A figure appears. It is the Lord God himself. There is no detailed description of God, no accounting of form or face. There is only presence, an overwhelming, absolute presence that is both terrifying and awesome. This is the fear that is not about danger, but about scale. It is the feeling of a single drop of water trying to comprehend the entire ocean. It is the feeling of a grain of sand being personally addressed by the mountain. It is the raw, unmediated presence of the Creator. And it is focused entirely on this one flawed, frightened man sleeping on a rock. And then God speaks. The voice doesn't boom with anger or condemnation. Jacob has every reason to expect a lecture. He's a liar, a cheat, a supplanter. But the words that come are not words of judgment. They are words of promise, of grace, of an unbreakable covenant. I am the Lord, the voice begins, the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. With this one sentence, God places Jacob back into his story. He is not just a random fugitive. He is the next link in a sacred chain. He is the heir to a promise that began generations before him. God is reminding Jacob of who he is, even when Jacob himself has forgotten. The land on which you are lying, God continues, I will give to you and your offspring. This promise is profoundly tangible. God is not speaking of some abstract spiritual real estate. He's talking about the very dirt and rock that Jacob can feel beneath his back. This hard, uncomfortable, foreign ground will one day be his home and the home of his children. Then the promise expands beyond geography to legacy. Your offspring will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. Dust, it's a humble image. It's everywhere, it's countless. Jacob is currently one man alone, with no wife and no children, running for his life. And God is promising him a future so vast, a family so numerous, that they will be as impossible to count as the specks of dust on the ground. Through his descendants, all the peoples on earth will be blessed. But it's the final promise that is the most personal, the most powerful, the one aimed directly at the heart of Jacob's present fear and loneliness. Behold, I am with you, God says, and I will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. I am with you. 3 simple words that completely reframe Jacob's reality. He is not alone on this journey. The God of the cosmos is his personal traveling companion. I will keep you wherever you go. This is a promise of protection, a shield against the dangers, both real and imagined, that haunt his steps. He may be running from his brother, but he is running directly into the protective embrace of God. I will bring you back. This is a promise of restoration. His exile is not permanent. His story does not end in a foreign land. There is a way home, and the final clause seals it all. God will not leave. His presence is not a fleeting comfort for a difficult night. It is a relentless, steadfast commitment. God has bound himself to Jacob's future. The vision fades. The light of the stairway recedes. The hum of angelic traffic goes silent. Jacob's eyes snap open. He is no longer just a tired man waking from a deep sleep. He has been fundamentally changed. The dream clings to him, the feeling of that divine presence still hanging heavy in the cool night air. The world looks different. The rocks, the dust, the silence, it's all the same, but he now sees it with new eyes. He sits up, his heart pounding not just with fear, but with a profound and holy awe. He looks around at the desolate landscape, at the stones he'd gathered, at the rock that had been his pillow, and he whispers to himself, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it." It's a stunning confession. He had thought this was just an empty spot on the map, a place to get through on his way to somewhere else. He now realizes that there is no empty spot. God is here. The sacred can erupt in the most profane and unexpected of places. He is afraid. The text says it plainly. This is not the cowering fear of a man expecting punishment. It is the trembling reverence of a man who has accidentally stumbled into the throne room of the King of the universe. "How awesome is this place," he exclaims. The Hebrew word for awesome is the same root as the word for fear. It means dreadful, terrifying, awe-inspiring. This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. He has recognized the spot for what the dream revealed it to be. A portal, a connection point, a place where the veil between worlds is thin. He can't just go back to sleep. He can't treat this night like any other. The experience demands a response. As the first light of dawn begins to streak the sky, he gets up and takes the very stone he had used for a pillow, that symbol of his hardship and low estate, and he sets it upright. He turns it into a pillar, a monument. He takes the small flask of oil he carries, likely a precious commodity for anointing his own skin against the harsh sun, and he pours it over the top of the stone. It's an act of consecration, of marking this place as holy. He is giving back a portion of what little he has to the God who has just promised him everything. He renames the place. It was called Luz, but he calls it Bethel, which means, quite simply, house of God. Jacob, ever the pragmatist, then makes a vow. If God will be with me and will watch over me on this journey I am taking, and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear so that I return safely to my father's household, Then the Lord will be my God, and this stone that I have set up as a pillar will be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will give you a tenth. It shows his faith is still young, still a bit transactional. It's the if-then bargain of a man still learning to trust. But it is also a declaration of allegiance. He is choosing to follow this God who sought him out in the wilderness. He finally continues his journey toward Haran, but he is no longer the same man. He is still a fugitive, still heading into an unknown future. But now he walks with a secret knowledge. He knows he is not alone. He knows that the God of his fathers is also his God, and that a promise of presence, protection, and purpose walks with him every step of the way. The terrifying dream in the desolate land, with its colossal stairway and its angelic traffic, did not break him. It remade him. It was a vision of terror and awe that became the foundation of his hope, proving that sometimes God meets us not in the pristine sanctuary, but out on the road, in our loneliest moments, with a rock for a pillow, and the gate of heaven opened just for us. Our last story was about a father, Jacob, who, in a moment of utter desolation, received a dream from God that became his anchor. Now, we turn to the next generation, to one of his sons, and discover how a dream from God, far from being a private comfort, can become a public catalyst for disaster. This is the story of Joseph, a young man whose divine visions of the future would first cost him everything. We meet Joseph in the vibrant, chaotic, and emotionally charged landscape of a large, blended family. He is the 11th of 12 brothers, but in the eyes of his aging father, Jacob, he is number one. Joseph was the firstborn son of Rachel, the wife Jacob had loved with a singular passion from the moment he first saw her. Rachel had been barren for many years, and Joseph's birth was seen as a special blessing from God. After Rachel's tragic death, giving birth to her second son, Benjamin, Jacob's already deep affection for Joseph intensified into a kind of focused, all-consuming favoritism. All his love for his lost wife was now poured into her son. This favoritism was not a secret. Jacob made it glaringly, painfully obvious to everyone. The most famous symbol of this was a gift he gave to Joseph, a special tunic. The classic translation calls it a coat of many colors, which conjures a lovely, rainbow-like image. However, a more accurate translation of the Hebrew suggests an ornate, long-sleeved robe. In that culture, laborers and shepherds wore simple, sleeveless tunics that allowed for freedom of movement. A long-sleeved, ornamented robe was the attire of royalty or management, someone who didn't do manual labor. By giving Joseph this garment, Jacob was sending a clear and unmistakable message to his other sons. This one is different. This one is destined to lead you. You can imagine how this went over with the other 10 brothers. They were the sons of Leah and the handmaidens, the children of a less loved wife and her servants. They were the ones out in the fields day after day, tending the flocks in the blistering sun and the cold nights, their hands calloused and their skin weathered. And here was their 17-year-old half-brother, parading around in his princely robe, reporting their misdeeds back to their father. The Bible is blunt about the outcome. They hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. The family camp was a tinderbox of jealousy and resentment, just waiting for a spark. And then God gave Joseph the spark. One night, Joseph had a dream. Like his father's dream at Bethel, it was vivid, symbolic, and felt profoundly significant. In the dream, he and his brothers were in a field, working together, binding sheaves of grain. It's an image of communal labor, of family enterprise. But then the dream shifts. Suddenly, the sheaf that Joseph had bound rises up and stands perfectly upright. And then, one by one, the 11 sheaves belonging to his brother's pivot gather around his and bow down low to the ground. It's not a subtle dream. It requires no great prophet to interpret its meaning. It's a vision of future hierarchy, of a day when his brothers would be subservient to him. When Joseph woke up, the dream was so real, so charged with meaning, that he couldn't contain it. Perhaps it was youthful naivete, perhaps a touch of the arrogance his brothers already suspected, but he did the single most foolish thing he could have done. He went straight to his brothers and told them every detail. "Listen to this dream I had," he began, likely with an air of excitement and wonder. The reaction was immediate and venomous. Their faces, already hardened against him, darkened further. Their scorn was palpable. "Do you intend to reign over us?" they sneered. "Will you actually rule us?" The dream was terrifying to them, not because it contained monsters or darkness, but because it confirmed their deepest, most resentful fears. It gave divine weight to the injustice they felt every single day. This spoiled younger brother, their father's pet, was apparently destined to be their master. The Bible notes, and they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. You would think that after such a hostile reception, Joseph might have learned a lesson about discretion. You would be wrong. Soon after, God sent him another dream, even more audacious and cosmically grand than the first. This time, Joseph looked to the heavens. He saw the sun, the moon, and 11 stars all bowing down before him. The symbolism was, again, painfully clear. The earthly domain of agriculture had been replaced by the celestial realm. The sun and moon represented his father and mother, and the 11 stars were, of course, his brothers. This dream didn't just place him above his siblings, it placed him at the very center of his family's universe. And once again, with a breathtaking lack of social awareness, Joseph shared it. This time, he didn't just tell his brothers, he told his father as well. The result was predictable. His brothers' jealousy burned even hotter, their silent contempt curdling into a dangerous, simmering rage. But Jacob's reaction was more layered. On the surface, he rebuked his son, perhaps to quell the rising tension among the brothers. "What is this dream you had?" he asked, a sharp edge to his voice. "Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you?" It seemed like a dismissal. But the narrative gives us a crucial insight into Jacob's mind. While his brothers were jealous of him, his father kept the matter in mind. Jacob, the man who had his own life-altering encounter with God in a dream, could not simply dismiss this one. He recognized the potential signature of the divine. He understood that God sometimes spoke in the symbolic language of the night. So while he scolded the boy, he stored the dream away in his heart, pondering its weight and its potential truth. He was troubled by it, perhaps even frightened by its implications, but he did not reject it. The dreams now hung in the air between the brothers, unspoken but ever present. They were no longer just dreams. They were a prophecy of a future they refused to accept. And they decided they would do anything to prevent it from coming to pass. Their chance came not long after. The older brothers had taken the family flocks to graze near Shechem, a journey of several days to the north. After some time, Jacob, wanting to know if they were well, turned to Joseph. "Go and see if all is well with your brothers and with the flocks, and bring word back to me." And so Jacob, the loving father, unwittingly sent his favorite son, the dreamer, on a collision course with a decade of hatred. Joseph put on his beautiful, princely robe, the very symbol of the division between them, and set off. The journey was long. When he arrived in Shechem, his brothers were gone. A stranger found him wandering in the fields and told him they had moved on to a place called Dothan. Joseph, diligent and obedient, pressed on. Imagine him walking that last stretch, a vibrant splash of color against the dusty brown hills, easily visible from a great distance. He is searching for his family, thinking only of his father's request, completely unaware that he is walking into an ambush. From a ridge overlooking the valley, the brothers see him. "Here comes that dreamer," one of them says, the words dripping with contempt. The sight of him, and perhaps the hated coat, ignites the fuse of their long-held resentment. The years of jealousy, anger, and feelings of inadequacy erupt in a conspiracy of chilling violence. Their first, impulsive plan is murder. "Come now," they plot, their voices low and urgent. "Let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him." And then comes the line that reveals their true motive. "Then we'll see what becomes of his dreams." This is not just about killing a brother. It is an act of war against God's revealed future. They believe that if they can eliminate the dreamer, they can nullify the dreams. They are trying to wrestle control of their destiny back from the God who gave the visions. Reuben, the eldest brother, is horrified. As the firstborn, he bears a greater responsibility, and perhaps he alone feels the true weight of what they are about to do. But he knows he can't oppose them directly. So he offers a compromise. "Let's not take his life," he argues. "Don't shed any blood. Throw him into this cistern here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him." It sounds cruel, but it's a clever ruse. Reuben's secret plan is to let the others leave, and then circle back later to rescue Joseph and return him to their father. The brothers, eager to be rid of Joseph, but perhaps hesitant to have his blood directly on their hands, agree to the plan. As Joseph approaches, greeting them with an open heart, they seize him. There is no mercy. They roughly tear the ornate robe from his back, stripping him of his identity, of his father's love and of his dignity. And then they throw him into the cistern. A cistern in that region was a deep, bottle-shaped pit dug into the rock to collect rainwater. This one, the Bible notes, was empty. There was no water. So Joseph wasn't thrown in to drown, but to be left to die of starvation and exposure. Imagine the terror of that fall, the landing on the hard, dusty floor, the circle of blue sky above, shrinking as he fell, the sudden, suffocating darkness, the chilling silence of the pit, broken only by the muffled, angry voices of his own brothers above. The dreamer, whose visions reached the sun and stars, was now in a black hole in the earth, his future seemingly extinguished. And then, in a moment of almost unbelievable callousness, the brothers sit down to eat their lunch. As they eat, they look up and see a caravan of Ishmaelite merchants approaching, their camels loaded with spices and goods on their way to the great markets of Egypt. And Judah, another brother, has a cold, pragmatic idea. What will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? He asks. Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood. It is a chillingly logical argument. Why leave him to die for no reason when they could be rid of him and make a profit? Their hatred is so deep that they can rationalize turning their own brother into a piece of merchandise. The others agree. They haul a terrified Joseph out of the pit. There is no negotiation. They haggle with the merchants and settle on a price, 20 shekels of silver, the standard price for a young male slave. The silver coins are counted out, and Joseph is handed over. He is bound and led away with the caravan, heading toward a life of slavery in a foreign land. The last thing he would have seen of his family was their backs as they turned away, their pockets heavier with his price. The final act of their betrayal is one of calculated, theatrical cruelty aimed directly at their father's heart. They take Joseph's beautiful robe, the one they tore from his back, and they slaughter a goat, dipping the precious garment in its blood. They travel home and present the stained, ruined robe to Jacob. They don't even commit to the lie directly. They use a question, twisting the knife. We found this, they say with false innocence. Examine it to see whether it is your son's robe. Jacob, the old patriarch, recognizes it instantly. His mind leaps to the only possible conclusion. It is my son's robe, he cries out, his voice choked with anguish. Some ferocious animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces. His grief is absolute. He tears his own clothes, puts on sackcloth, and mourns for his son. His other children, the very ones who caused his pain, gather around to comfort him, their words hollow and hypocritical. But he refuses all comfort. I will continue to mourn until I go down to the grave to my son, he weeps. The lie has worked perfectly. The dreamer is gone, his dreams presumed dead, and a father's heart is shattered for decades to come. The dreams God sent to Joseph were terrifying. They terrified his brothers with a future they could not accept, driving them to acts of unspeakable cruelty. And the consequences of those dreams plunged Joseph himself into a living nightmare. The darkness of the pit, the chains of slavery, the loss of his family and his freedom. From the outside, it looked as if the brothers had won. They had indeed seen what would become of his dreams. They had become a nightmare. But they and Joseph, and even Jacob, had no way of knowing that the pit was not an ending. It was a doorway. The sale into slavery was not a random tragedy. It was the first, brutal, necessary step in the fulfillment of the very dreams they were trying to kill. God's plan was still unfolding, not in the comfort of a favored son's life, but in the crucible of a slave's journey to Egypt. We move now from the dusty plains of Canaan and the intricate, painful drama of a single family to the heart of the ancient world's greatest superpower, the sprawling, magnificent, and merciless city of Babylon. Our dreamer is no longer a fugitive son or a teenage prodigy, but the most powerful man on the face of the earth, King Nebuchadnezzar II. This is a man who existed at the absolute apex of human authority. He was a conqueror of nations, a destroyer of armies, a king whose ambition was written in brick and stone across the Mesopotamian landscape. He built the legendary Ishtar Gate, a wonder of brilliant blue-glazed brick. He is credited with constructing the Hanging Gardens, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. His power was not theoretical, it was absolute. His whims became law, and his displeasure meant death. He was a man who likely believed he was accountable to no one, a self-made god in a world he had conquered. And it is this man, insulated by wealth, protected by invincible armies, and surrounded by the best minds of his empire, who is about to be terrified out of his wits by a dream. One night, the king sleeps in his palace, likely in a room of unparalleled luxury. But his rest is invaded. A vision, or a series of visions, floods his mind. The Bible tells us that his spirit was troubled, a phrase that barely scratches the surface of the deep, existential dread that seized him. This wasn't just a bad dream about falling or being chased. This was something else entirely. It was a dream that felt heavy, monolithic, freighted with a meaning that was both profoundly important and utterly beyond his grasp. It left an imprint on his soul, a deep sense of disquiet that lingered like the phantom pain of a lost limb. When he jolted awake in the pre-dawn darkness, the details were gone, evaporated like mist, but the terror remained. He was left with the ghost of a revelation, and it was shaking the foundations of his world. A troubled king means a troubled kingdom. Nebuchadnezzar immediately summons his entire panel of spiritual and intellectual experts. Imagine the scene: the great throne room, flickering with torchlight, filled with the most prestigious figures in Babylonian society. There are the magicians, masters of sacred rites, the enchanters, who specialized in charms and spells, the sorcerers, who communed with the spirit world, and the Chaldeans, who were the astronomer-astrologers, the scientists of their day, renowned for their wisdom. They are the best and the brightest, the men whose job it is to make sense of the cosmos for the king. They assemble before the throne, bowing low, ready to serve. The king, his face likely drawn and pale from a sleepless night, presents his problem. "I have had a dream," he announces, his voice echoing in the chamber, "and my spirit is anxious to know what the dream was." The Chaldeans, speaking for the group, give the standard professional reply. It's a script they have followed 1,000 times. "O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation." It's a simple, reasonable request. Tell us the data, and we will give you the analysis. But Nebuchadnezzar's response is neither simple nor reasonable. It is the demand of an absolute monarch who suspects his advisors might be frauds. A flicker of paranoia, or perhaps a stroke of divine inspiration, makes him change the rules of the game entirely. "The decision is firm from me," he says, his voice turning to iron. "If you do not make known to me the dream and its interpretation, you shall be torn limb from limb, and your houses shall be laid in ruins." A wave of shock must have rippled through the assembled wise men. He can't be serious. He wants them to reach into his sleeping mind and pull out a memory that he himself cannot access. It's an impossible, unprecedented request. The king continues, laying out the alternative. "But if you show the dream and its interpretation, you shall receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor." The stakes are now crystal clear. Perform an impossible feat of supernatural insight, or die a horrific death. This isn't a consultation. It's an ultimatum. The Chaldeans are stunned into a desperate, terrified plea. They try again to reason with him. "Let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will show its interpretation." They are begging him to be reasonable, but the king's anger is rising. He sees their hesitation as evasion, a trick. "I know with certainty that you are trying to buy time," he accuses, "because you see that my decision is firm." Backed into a corner, the wise men are forced to admit the limits of their power. Their confession is a blend of flattery and desperation. "There is not a man on earth who can meet the king's demand," they insist. "For no king, lord, or ruler has ever asked such a thing of any magician, enchanter, or Chaldean." They are trying to tell him that he is breaking the rules of magic, of religion, of statecraft itself. They are experts in an established system, but he is asking for a miracle. Their final, fateful admission seals their doom. The thing that the king asks is difficult, and no one can show it to the king except the gods, and their dwelling is not with flesh. They have just signed their own death warrant. In Nebuchadnezzar's mind, they have confessed to being useless charlatans. His anxiety and frustration explode into a ferocious, tyrannical rage. If these men, who claim to have a connection to the divine, cannot solve his problem, then they are worthless. He issues a decree, swift and merciless. All the wise men of Babylon are to be executed, not just the ones in the throne room, all of them. The purge will be total. The order ripples through the city, and Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, begins to carry it out. And this is where our story pivots, from the terror of a pagan king to the quiet faith of a young Hebrew exile. The death sentence extends to a group of brilliant young men from the conquered nation of Judah, who had been handpicked for their intelligence and trained in the Babylonian court. Among them is Daniel and his three friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, better known to us by their Babylonian names, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. When Arioch arrives, ready to lead them to their execution, Daniel doesn't panic. He doesn't beg or weep. The text says he replied with wisdom and tact, a remarkable display of composure for a young man about to be killed. He simply asks a question. Why is the decree from the king so urgent and harsh? Arioch, perhaps impressed by his calmness, explains the entire situation: the king's dream, the impossible demand, and the failure of the Chaldeans. Daniel processes this information, and filled with a courage that can only come from profound faith, he takes an incredible risk. He goes directly into the lion's den, requesting an audience with the furious King Nebuchadnezzar. Standing before this monarch who has just ordered his death, Daniel asks for one thing: time. He makes a simple, bold promise. If the king will grant him a temporary stay of execution, he will provide the king with the dream and its interpretation. Nebuchadnezzar, desperate for an answer, and perhaps seeing a glimmer of hope, or simply a spark of unusual confidence in this young foreigner, agrees. Daniel doesn't waste a moment. He doesn't retire to his chambers to study ancient texts or consult mystical charts. He goes straight to his three best friends. He lays out the stark reality of their situation. The king has ordered us all to be killed, he must have said, unless we can discover the secret of his dream. His proposed solution is not a clever scheme or an escape plan. It is a prayer meeting. He urges them to plead for mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery. Their lives, and the lives of all the other wise men, now depend not on human wisdom, but on divine revelation. So the four young men pray. In the heart of a pagan empire, under the threat of a death sentence, they turn to the God of their ancestors. That night, God answers. In a vision of the night, the whole mystery is revealed to Daniel. He receives not just the interpretation, but the dream itself in perfect clarity. His response is not one of self-congratulation or relief. It is an immediate and beautiful explosion of worship. He blesses the God of heaven, saying, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, to whom belong wisdom and might." He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. He gives all the credit, all the glory, to the only one who deserves it. Strengthened by this divine encounter, Daniel goes to Arioch. "Do not destroy the wise men of Babylon," he declares. "Bring me before the king, and I will show him the interpretation." He is rushed into the royal presence. The air in the throne room must have been electric with tension. There stands Nebuchadnezzar, the emperor of the world, his face etched with anxiety, and before him stands Daniel, a young captive from a conquered nation. The king looks at him, his question direct and hopeful. "Are you able to make known to me the dream that I have seen and its interpretation?" Daniel's reply is a masterclass in diplomacy and truth. He begins by honoring the king's experience while gently dismantling his worldview. No wise man, enchanter, magician, or astrologer can show to the king the mystery that the king has asked, he says, confirming the conclusion the Chaldeans had already reached. He validates the failure of the entire Babylonian system of wisdom. But then he pivots. But he continues, his voice ringing with confidence. There is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will be in the latter days. He positions himself not as a source of wisdom, but as a humble messenger. This isn't about him. It's a direct communication from the true God to the most powerful king on earth. Then Daniel begins to speak, and as he does, the king's lost dream rebuilds itself in his mind. You, O king, were looking, Daniel says, and behold, a great image. This image, mighty and of exceeding brightness, stood before you, and its appearance was frightening. He describes the colossal statue in intricate detail. Its head was of fine gold. Its chest and arms were of silver. Its belly and thighs were of bronze. Its legs were of iron, and its feet were a bizarre, unstable mixture of iron and baked clay. It was a terrifyingly beautiful vision of immense human power, a gleaming colossus representing the glory of earthly empires. But the vision wasn't static. As the king watched, a stone was cut out, but not by human hands. This stone of supernatural origin flew through the air and struck the great statue on its weakest point, its feet of mixed iron and clay. The impact was cataclysmic. In an instant, the entire structure was shattered. The iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold all crumbled together, becoming like the fine chaff on a thrashing floor in the heat of summer. A wind came and blew them all away, leaving not a single trace behind. The magnificent, terrifying statue of human history and achievement was utterly annihilated, and the stone that had struck it grew and grew until it became a great mountain that filled the entire earth. A hush must have fallen over the throne room as Daniel finished describing the dream. He had done the impossible. Now, for the interpretation. You, O king, are the King of Kings, Daniel begins respectfully. The God of heaven has given you the kingdom, the power, and the might, and the glory. You are that head of gold. After you, Daniel continues, another kingdom will arise, inferior to yours, represented by the silver. Then a third kingdom of bronze will rule over the earth. After that, a fourth kingdom will emerge, as strong as iron, a power that crushes and shatters all before it. But finally, that kingdom will be divided, symbolized by the feet and toes of mixed iron and clay. It will have some of the strength of iron, but also the brittleness of clay. It will be a fragmented power, unable to truly cohere. And in the days of those kings, Daniel proclaims, reaching the stunning climax of the revelation, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed. This is the stone cut without hands. It is not another human empire. It is a kingdom of divine origin. It shall break in pieces all these kingdoms and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever. The dream was a prophecy of all of human history from God's perspective. It revealed that every mighty empire, the Babylonian, the Persian, the Greek, the Roman, and all that would follow, no matter how golden or glorious in its moment, is temporary. Each one is part of a great, decaying statue of human pride that is destined to be smashed and blown away like dust. The only thing that will endure is the kingdom established by God Himself, a kingdom that will grow to fill the whole earth. Nebuchadnezzar is utterly undone. The truth of the dream, the power of its interpretation, and the miracle of its recovery shatter his pride. This all-powerful emperor, who believed himself to be a god, does something unimaginable. He falls on his face, prostrate on the floor, and worships Daniel, the young Hebrew captive. He commands his servants to present an offering to Daniel. When he finally rises, he makes a royal confession that echoes through history. Truly, he says to Daniel, your God is God of gods and Lord of kings, and a revealer of mysteries, for you have been able to reveal this mystery. The terrifying dream, which began as a harbinger of death, became the instrument of God's glory. It terrified a king into acknowledging his own mortality and the ultimate sovereignty of the God of heaven. And as a result, Daniel and his friends were not executed, but promoted to the highest offices in the land, becoming beacons of light and wisdom in the heart of a dark empire. In our last story, we saw the prophet Daniel as a young man, standing with unshakable composure before an earthly king, revealing the secrets of a divine dream. He was the messenger, the conduit of a terrifying truth meant for another. Now, many decades have passed. Daniel is no longer a youth in a foreign court. He is an old man, a seasoned statesman who has weathered the collapse of the mighty Babylonian Empire and now serves its conquerors, the Medes and the Persians. He has spent a lifetime walking with God, interpreting signs, and speaking truth to power. But the dream we are about to explore is not for a king. This one is for him. And we will see that even a man as righteous and experienced as Daniel is not immune to the bone-chilling terror of a direct, unfiltered vision from the throne room of heaven. The vision comes to him in his bed at night. There's no preamble, no gentle easing into the dreamscape. He is plunged directly into a scene of cosmic chaos. Before him lies the great sea, which in the ancient mind was not a tranquil place of vacation, but a symbol of the abyss, of primordial chaos, the restless and untamable world of the Gentile nations. And this sea is not calm. The four winds of heaven were churning it up, whipping it into a furious, frothing maelstrom. It's an image of immense conflict and instability, as if the very powers of heaven are at war, and their battleground is the sea of humanity. And out of this chaos, something is about to be born. One by one, four great beasts emerge from the tempestuous waters. These are not creatures you would find in any bestiary. They are monstrous, hybrid beings, each one more strange and terrible than the last. The first is a lion. But this is a lion with the wings of an eagle. It's a magnificent and powerful image, combining the raw strength of the king of beasts with the swift, soaring majesty of the king of the air. This is a clear symbol of the Babylonian Empire in its glory under Nebuchadnezzar, fierce, proud, and impossibly fast in its conquests. But as Daniel watches, the creature is violently humbled. Its wings are ripped off. It is lifted from the ground and forced to stand on 2 feet like a man. And then, a final, strange transformation. The heart of a man is given to it. This echoes the personal story of Nebuchadnezzar, who, in his pride, was struck with a beast-like madness, and only when he was humbled did his human reason return. The great, soaring empire is grounded, its beastly heart replaced by the fragile, finite heart of a man. The first beast recedes, and a second heaves itself out of the chaotic sea. This one is like a bear. It is a lumbering, powerful creature, a vision of brute strength. It is raised up on one of its sides, suggesting a lopsided or unequal alliance of power. In its mouth, clenched between its great teeth, are 3 bloody ribs. A voice, seeming to come from the storm itself, commands it, "Get up and eat your fill of flesh." This is the Medo-Persian Empire that conquered Babylon. Less swift and majestic than the lion, it is a relentless, crushing power, driven by an insatiable appetite for conquest. With the 3 ribs symbolizing major nations it has devoured. Then comes the third beast, and the vision grows stranger still. It looks like a leopard, an animal already known for its incredible speed and agility. But this creature is supernaturally swift. On its back are 4 wings, like those of a bird. The image is one of blindingly fast conquest, an empire that would flash across the world stage in the blink of an eye. And the beast has another bizarre feature. It has 4 heads. This points to a power that, after its initial unified conquest, would be fractured and divided into 4 separate dominions. For Daniel, this was a vision of a distant, unknown future. For us, looking back through history, it is a breathtakingly accurate prophecy of the Greek Empire under Alexander the Great, who conquered the known world with unprecedented speed, only to have his kingdom splintered among his 4 top generals after his sudden death. Each beast is unsettling, but they are all recognizable archetypes of power: the proud lion, the brutish bear, the swift leopard. But the 4th beast that rises from the sea is something else entirely. It defies description. Daniel, even with his prophetic vocabulary, can find no earthly animal to compare it to. He simply says it was terrifying and frightening and very powerful. It is the incarnation of pure, mechanistic, unfeeling destruction. It has great teeth of iron, and it doesn't just kill its prey. It crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. This is a vision of an empire that operates with the cold, indiscriminate efficiency of a war machine, an entity that not only conquers, but pulverizes cultures, laws, and peoples, leaving nothing but dust in its wake. This is the spirit of the Roman Empire, a power of unprecedented strength and brutality, and the creature's monstrosity is crowned by a set of 10 horns. In prophetic language, horns represent kings or seats of power. So this fourth beast would eventually manifest as a confederation of 10 kingdoms. As Daniel stares in horror at these horns, his attention is drawn to a new development. A small horn, a little one, begins to grow up among the other 10, and in the process, it violently uproots 3 of the existing horns, clearing a space for itself. This little horn is the focal point of the terror. It is not just a symbol of power, it has a personality. It possesses eyes like the eyes of a man, signifying intelligence, cunning, and surveillance. And it has a mouth that spoke boastfully. This is not just a king, this is an antichrist figure, an arrogant, blasphemous ruler who will rise from the ashes of the final empire, speaking great things against God himself. The horror of this vision of human history, portrayed as a succession of monstrous, predatory beasts culminating in an intelligent, blasphemous evil, is reaching an unbearable crescendo. The chaos of the sea seems triumphant. But just as the darkness is at its deepest, the entire scene shifts. The vision is ripped away from the churning sea of earth and transported to the serene, majestic calm of the heavens. Daniel sees a celestial courtroom. Thrones are set in place. And then, a figure of unimaginable age and authority takes his seat. Daniel calls him the Ancient of Days. His clothing is white as snow, and the hair of his head is like pure wool, symbols of perfect holiness and eternal wisdom. His throne is made of blazing fire, and its wheels are burning flames, signifying a judgment that is both pure and mobile, able to go anywhere. A river of fire flows out from before him. This is a vision of God the Father, not as a distant deity, but as an active, imminent judge. The court is in session. He is attended by thousands upon thousands, and 10,000 times 10,000 stand before him. The books are opened, containing the records of all the deeds done on earth. The contrast with the scene on earth is absolute. The chaos of the sea is replaced by the perfect order of the court. The lawless, ravenous beasts are now subject to the judgment of the eternal lawgiver, and the first case on the docket is the boastful little horn. Daniel watches as judgment is passed because of its arrogant words. The fourth beast is summarily executed. It is slain and its body destroyed and thrown into the blazing fire. Its destruction is total and final. The other 3 beasts, Daniel notes, had their earthly dominion taken away, but they were allowed to live on for a season and a time. But this final, blasphemous power is to be utterly and eternally annihilated. With the judgment complete and the beast destroyed, the vision reaches its stunning, hopeful climax. Daniel looks up and sees, coming with the clouds of heaven, one like a son of man. After a parade of monstrous, inhuman beasts, here is a figure who is recognizably human. He is not crawling out of the chaotic sea below. He is arriving from the heavens above, on the clouds, a sign of divine authority. He is brought before the throne of the Ancient of Days. And to this Son of Man, the Ancient of Days gives everything. He is given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. The prophecy is absolute. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom is one that shall not be destroyed. This is the kingdom from Nebuchadnezzar's dream, the stone cut without hands. But now it is no longer an abstract concept. It is embodied in this glorious, human-like figure who receives his authority directly from God the Father. The vision ends. Daniel is back in his bed, but he is profoundly shaken. The text says his spirit was troubled within him, and the visions alarmed him. This was not a comforting bedtime story. It was a terrifying glimpse into the violent heart of human history, the rise of monstrous empires, and the appearance of a charismatic, evil leader who would defy God himself. It was a vision of immense suffering and persecution for the people of God. Distraught, Daniel approaches one of the angelic beings standing by in the vision and asks for the true meaning of it all. The angel explains it plainly. The 4 beasts are 4 kingdoms. The 4th beast will be different from all the others, a kingdom that will devour the whole earth. The 10 horns are 10 kings from that kingdom. The little horn who follows them will subdue 3 kings. He will speak words against the Most High, and shall wear out the holy ones of the Most High, and shall think to change the times and the law. The faithful will be given into his hand for a symbolic period of intense persecution. A time, times, and half a time. It is a chilling prophecy of a future dark age. But the angel does not end there. But the court shall sit in judgment, the angel reassures him, and his dominion shall be taken away, to be consumed and destroyed to the end. And the kingdom and the dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the holy ones of the Most High. The terror of Daniel's vision lies in its brutal honesty about the nature of worldly power. Unlike the gleaming statue in Nebuchadnezzar's dream, which portrayed empires as glorious metals, this vision shows them for what they truly are from a heavenly perspective: monstrous, predatory beasts rising from chaos to devour and destroy. Yet, the ultimate message is not one of despair, but of profound hope. It declares that the chaos and the monsters do not have the final say. The final authority rests in the heavenly courtroom, with the Ancient of Days on his throne of fire, and with the Son of Man, whose kingdom of light, justice, and peace will ultimately shatter the darkness and stand forever. For our final story, we journey forward in time, past the fall of empires and the cryptic prophecies of the Old Testament, into the bright, dusty, and vibrant world of the early Christian church. The visions we have witnessed so far have been vast and apocalyptic, dealing with the rise and fall of nations and the cosmic sweep of history. But the vision we turn to now is profoundly intimate, startlingly strange, and in its own way, just as earth-shattering as any prophecy of beasts and statues. The terror here is not the fear of monsters or of judgment, but the dizzying, disorienting terror of having your entire worldview, your very identity, systematically dismantled by God in the time it takes to make lunch. Our dreamer is Simon Peter, This isn't a pagan king or a prophet in exile. This is the chief apostle, the rock on whom Jesus said he would build his church. He is a fisherman by trade, a man of action and impulse, deeply passionate and devoutly Jewish. He has walked with Jesus, witnessed the resurrection, and preached with fiery boldness at Pentecost. He is a pillar of the fledgling Jerusalem church, a community that, at this point, is still almost exclusively Jewish. They are followers of Jesus the Messiah, but they see themselves as the fulfillment of Judaism, not a replacement for it. They still worship at the temple, they still circumcise their sons, and they still, with the utmost seriousness, follow the intricate tapestry of laws given to them by God through Moses. Central to this way of life were the kashrut, the dietary laws found in the book of Leviticus. For centuries, these laws had been a defining mark of Jewish identity. They were a daily, tangible reminder of their covenant relationship with God. The laws drew a clear, bright line in the sand of creation. On one side were the clean animals, those that could be eaten, and on the other were the unclean, the forbidden, the abominable. This distinction wasn't merely about diet or hygiene. It was a profound theological statement. It separated the holy from the profane, and by extension, it separated the people of God from the Gentile nations who ate all manner of unclean things. To share a meal with a Gentile or to eat forbidden food was to defile oneself, to step outside the sacred boundaries of the covenant. For a man like Peter, this was not just a rule, it was reality, as fundamental as the rising of the sun. The scene is set in the bustling port city of Joppa, a town on the Mediterranean coast. Peter is staying at the house of a tanner named Simon, a detail that is itself slightly edgy, as tanning involved handling dead animals, placing it on the fringes of acceptable Jewish professions. It is around noon, the 6th hour, and the Middle Eastern sun is high and hot. Peter has gone up to the flat rooftop of the house to pray. Roofs in that part of the world were living spaces, places to catch a breeze and find a moment of peace. And as he prays, Peter gets hungry. The very human, very relatable sensation of a rumbling stomach becomes the unlikely stage for a divine revelation. While he is waiting for a meal to be prepared downstairs, something happens. He falls into a trance. This is not ordinary sleep or a daydream. This is a state of altered consciousness, a vision where the veil between the natural and supernatural worlds is pulled back. He sees the heavens rip open, and an object begins to descend toward him. It looks like a great sheet or a large tablecloth, held taut at its four corners, as if by invisible hands, being lowered from the sky down to the earth. As it draws near, Peter can see what is inside the sheet, and the sight must have sent a jolt of revulsion through him. The sheet is teeming with a chaotic menagerie of living things, a collection that seems gathered from the darkest corners of the Levitical code. The Bible says it contained all kinds of four-footed animals of the earth, wild beasts, reptiles, and birds of the air. It was a squirming, crawling, slithering assortment of everything a good Jew was forbidden to eat. There would have been pigs, camels, rabbits, eagles, vultures, lizards, and all manner of creatures that were the very definition of unclean. To Peter's eyes, this was not a collection of God's creatures. It was a tablecloth full of pollution, a descending vessel of defilement. Then a voice, clear and commanding, echoes from heaven. "Get up, Peter," it says. "Kill and eat." The command is so shocking, so fundamentally contrary to his entire being, that Peter's response is an instantaneous, horrified protest. "Surely not, Lord," he cries out. The phrase is a perfect encapsulation of his inner conflict. He acknowledges the speaker as Lord, yet in the same breath, he refuses the command. He cannot reconcile the identity of the speaker with the content of the instruction. He then tries to justify his disobedience, to defend his lifelong piety. "For I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean." He is, in effect, telling God, "You must have the wrong person. I am one of the good ones. I follow your rules." The voice from heaven speaks again, and this time it is not a command, but a paradigm-shattering rebuke that strikes at the very heart of Peter's religious framework. Do not call anything impure that God has made clean. Let those words sink in. God himself is declaring his authority to change the rules. He is stating that the categories Peter has lived by his entire life, the very definitions of clean and unclean that formed the bedrock of his faith and culture, are now being redefined by their author. God is taking the sacred line he once drew and is now erasing it. And just to make sure the message gets through Peter's thick, stubborn skull, the whole sequence repeats. The sheet, the unthinkable command, Peter's horrified refusal, and God's stunning rebuke. It happens a second time, and then a third time. This threefold repetition is a divine underlining, a way of saying, this is not a mistake. This is not a test. This is a new reality. Pay attention. After the third cycle, the sheet is abruptly snatched back up into heaven, and the vision is over. Peter is left alone on the rooftop. The trance is gone, but a profound confusion remains. The sun is still hot. The sounds of the city still drift up from the streets. The smell of food is likely still in the air. But his inner world has been thrown into chaos. The text says he was greatly perplexed in himself as to what the vision which he had seen might mean. The vision was terrifyingly clear in its content, but utterly baffling in its purpose. Why would God command him to violate his own holy law? Was it a test of obedience? A trick? The terror Peter felt was not of claws and fangs, but of cognitive dissonance, the frightening feeling of the solid ground of his faith turning to quicksand beneath his feet. And then, as is so often the case with God's timing, just as Peter is wrestling with the divine puzzle, the answer comes knocking at the door. Downstairs, 3 men have arrived at the gate. They are not Jews. One is a Roman soldier, and the other 2 are servants, sent from the home of a man named Cornelius. Cornelius was a centurion in the Italian cohort, an officer in the occupying Roman army. By every metric of Peter's culture, these men, and the man who sent them, were the definition of unclean. They were Gentiles. But before Peter can even react with his ingrained suspicion, the Holy Spirit speaks to him directly, connecting the vision to the visitors. "Behold, 3 men are looking for you. Arise and go down and accompany them without hesitation, for I have sent them." And in that moment, the light dawns. A wave of stunning realization must have washed over Peter. The vision wasn't about food. The pigs and the reptiles and the crawling things, they were never the point. The animals were a metaphor. The great sheet containing every kind of creature, clean and unclean, lowered from heaven, represented all of humanity. God's revolutionary declaration, "Do not call anything impure that God has made clean," was about people. The wall that had stood for centuries between Jew and Gentile, a wall that the dietary laws had helped to build and maintain, was being personally torn down by the God who had commanded it in the first place. Shaken but obedient, Peter goes downstairs. In a radical act of hospitality that would have been unthinkable just an hour earlier, he invites these 3 Gentiles into the house to spend the night as his guests. The next day, he and some other Jewish believers from Joppa set out with them to Caesarea, to the home of the Roman centurion. When Peter arrives, he finds Cornelius has gathered his entire family and close friends, all of them Gentiles, all of them eagerly waiting to hear what he has to say. Peter walks into this Gentile home, a profoundly transgressive act for a man of his background, and he explains the personal revolution that has just occurred. "You yourselves know how unlawful it is for a Jew to associate with or to visit anyone of another nation," he says, acknowledging the barrier he has just crossed. "But God has shown me that I should not call any person common or unclean." With that, he preaches the good news of Jesus to this room full of Romans. And as he is still speaking, the Holy Spirit falls upon every Gentile in the room. They begin to speak in other tongues and praise God in the exact same way the Jewish believers had on the day of Pentecost. Peter and his Jewish companions are absolutely dumbfounded. They are witnessing undeniable, audible, visible proof that God is pouring out his Spirit and his salvation upon non-Jews freely and fully, with no requirement that they first convert to Judaism. The perplexing, slightly grotesque, and terrifyingly confusing vision on the rooftop now made perfect, glorious sense. It was the divine intervention necessary to shatter the religious prejudice in Peter's heart and to swing open the doors of the church to the entire world. It was a dream that taught him that the love of God is not a walled garden for one people, but a great sheet lowered from heaven, large enough to hold us all.